So guys, we're really excited to do another one of these breakfasts, as Ryan alluded to. It's been a while. I think our last one was in October or November. And we've been going through a little bit of a revamp process here. So this is exciting to see. This room is almost too small for this event now, which is really, really cool. And so today we're going to approach this a little differently than we have. If you've been to one of our, we call them the CBB. If you're inside now, you can use the inside lingo, okay? Like the CBB. This is going to be a little bit of a different format than we have run in the past. But we're real excited about trying this out, all right? And kind of seeing how it fits today. So our goal, as Ryan said, is to encourage you, to equip you, to inspire you today, to make Jesus known at work and around the world. So you have a booklet there that Ryan's already alluded to this morning. There's some fill in the blanks, all right? I don't know about you, but sometimes when somebody gets up here and blabs for a little while, I need something to help me stay focused. So that's the goal of that booklet there. There's some great fill in the blanks there. And I'll bring note. You can write those down when we get to them. And then we're going to have some interactive time today. So this isn't just going to be you standing or sitting there listening to me talk. We're going to set it up, and then we're going to have some fun interaction. And my colleague, Bill Tibbetts, is going to walk us through that today. All right? So let's get going. All right? Let's get rolling. You can start by writing this down, okay? So here's some questions that I think a lot of marketplace people are wrestling with in one way or the other. You probably don't articulate them, like you might not articulate them this way, but I think deep down inside, a lot of us who go to work every day in the marketplace and we're followers of Jesus, we're wrestling with these kinds of questions. First one, is there any eternal value to my day job? Anybody ever wonder that? Is there any eternal value to this work I get up and go do every day? How about the next one? Is there any gospel meaning to my everyday work? Is there anything about the gospel that is connected to what I get up and go do every day? How about the next one? Here's a good one. If I really love God, shouldn't I quit my job and go into full-time ministry? Anybody ever wrestle with that one, right? If my faith is really that important to me, shouldn't I walk away from all of this and go on staff at my church? Next one. What does my everyday work have to do with God's mission in the world? What does my everyday work have to do with God's mission in the world? I think these are some of the questions that we're all wrestling with in one way or another, and there's some of the questions over the course of the next 4 CBBs this year that we're going to tackle and wrestle, all right? Today we're going to talk about work and the great separation. Work and the great separation. And I believe this is really the foundational problem that leads to the vast majority of struggles that all of us have with our work as followers of Jesus, all right? And so I want to start by telling you a story. Anybody grow up going to church camp? All right, there are some church camp kids here, all right? We're all upright and taking nourishment today. No, church camp was wonderful. Every summer, we went to church camp, and our church camp was in Lake Placid, Hartford City, Indiana, the booming metropolis of Hartford City, Indiana, all right? The water table in Hartford City has a little bit too much sulfur in it, and so it smells like rotten eggs. Like the whole city smells like rotten eggs, right? So whenever I smell rotten eggs, I have a spiritual experience, right? So we would go to Hartford. This is actually a picture of our summer church camp. This is what, I mean, we all dressed up. It's like 110 degrees in there. This was an old airplane hangar that they converted into a sanctuary. And we met God in this room, right? I mean, look at this. The guy's wearing a suit. He's wearing a suit. It's 110 degrees, right? But in this room, we met God in some real and powerful ways. But I don't know how your church camp worked, but our church camp, every night we had a church service, and every church service had a theme. So every night had a theme, right? The first night was like salvation. Second night was, about sanctification and discipleship. But the last night, the fourth night of church camp was always called into ministry night. Always called into ministry night. So that was the night when the evangelist, the camp evangelist, he would preach this powerful message on what it means to be called into the ministry. And he would ask at the end, it would culminate, he would ask, who here feels like they're called into the ministry? About 10% of the kids would raise their hands. And he would say, hey, if you're called, come up here to the front, right? Come up here to the front. And then the rest of us will come and pray for the 10% who are called into the ministry. And we would leave after that service was over. Powerful service. I mean, powerful service where God moved in the hearts and lives of young people. But we would say things like this to each other. Hey, did you get the call? And I always said at the end of that night, no, I didn't get the call. I'm just going into secular work. And see, listen, there's nothing bad or nefarious about this, right? Write this down. But we pick up a lot of our theology by assumption. Assumption. You can write this down too. I want to be very clear about this because if there are pastors in the room, this is very important. There is something unique and powerful about the pastoral calling to full-time ministry or a missionary's calling to go to the mission field, okay? There is an ecclesiastical distinction. What your pastors do and what our global missionaries do is unique and it's vital and it's important, right? And I believe more people actually need to respond to that call, especially to global missions, right? We're a big global missions organization here. But I think what we have done unintentionally is we have left those who didn't feel a specific call to full-time ministry, vocational ministry, feel like they had no calling at all. You ever thought that? I don't have a calling. They have a calling. I don't have a calling. Write this down. Marketplace Christians often feel like the Kingdom B team. We've talked about that a lot over the years here. Yeah, the B team, right? I guess, God passed out all his callings and there just weren't any left over for me. I believe that's left many marketplace believers feeling purposeless and disconnected in their everyday work. But I also think there's another unintended consequence. Write this down. Marketplace Christians often feel like they're off the hook. Woo! I'm glad those missionaries got the call. They can go do the hard stuff, right? After all, I wasn't called. I'm glad I don't have that kind of kingdom responsibility. I just work in the secular world, right? And friends, this is bad theology. It's an abbreviation of the full redemptive narrative of the gospel. Because if you don't work in full-time ministry, you weren't just regulated to the secular partitions of this life. Write this down. The question is not if you are called, but how you are called. You are called to the kingdom. You are in the game, and that's what I want to address with you this morning, okay? If you've been around here at all, you've probably seen me use this illustration before, okay? But I grew up with a bit of a psychological disorder, and I bet it's a psychological disorder that some of you in this room have as well. It's called brumotactilophobia. I think we've got that. Yeah, it's 19 letters. How's that, right? I grew up with brumotactilophobia. This is the fear of your food touching. So, some of you got your food this morning and you just mixed it all together. Like you poured Tabasco sauce on it. We had a friend in high school that we could mix anything together and he would eat it if we'd pay him $5, right? So we'd all pool our money and see what we could get Todd to eat that day, right? At lunch. That is just disgusting to me because I've dealt with this brumotactilophobia for a long time. I'm a firm believer that all food should be properly socially distanced at all times, right? That's why I love these old trays, okay? So these old, middle school lunch trays, did you guys use these? Yeah, all right. See, I think this is how all food should be served in modern civilization. I really do. But while these trays are a wonderful way, in my opinion, to serve a hot meal, they are a horrible way for us to think about our Christian lives. I think many of us instinctively do. Write this down. We instinctively split our lives into sacred and secular partitions. We call this, and you can write this down as well, the sacred secular divide or Christian dualism. And if you want to get real theological, this is actually a form of ancient Gnosticism that the church has been fighting against since the first century. The Gnostics believed that spirit was good, but matter was evil, and they kept all of it separated from one another. But see, just like these lunch trays, I think we partition our lives as well, don't we? We might say it something like this. I'm an accountant. That's my secular job. But, I volunteer in kids ministry on Sunday. That's my sacred work. That's where I really do the sacred things. Or I own a cleaning and restoration company. That's my secular job. That's what I do to make money. But, we go on a lot of short-term missions trips, and that's where we really do our sacred ministry work, right? There's this unspoken partitioning in Western Christianity. Write this down. We falsely assume that work in the church is sacred, but work in the marketplace is secular. So if we volunteer, we do it for ministry, it's innately God-honoring, but if we do it for money in the marketplace, it's a worldly thing all of a sudden, right? And while there is something unique, we've said this, about the pastoral call to full-time vocational ministry, and I still, again, if there's pastors in the room, please volunteer at your church, okay? This is not to get you to stop volunteering at your church. But this is bad theology. This sacred-secular divide is bad theology. Write this down. The sacred-secular thinking is an abbreviation of God's gospel, of the gospel's redemptive message. It's an abbreviation of it. And it's one of the main reasons that I believe so many Christians that do daily work in the marketplace struggle with purpose and to live on mission through their everyday work. We can't connect the dots. We don't know how to connect the dots. Because outside of the money we make and can give to ministry, many of us don't know what the actual work we get up and go do has to do with our lives as followers of Jesus. But see, if we're going to live in the full power of the gospel, I believe the first thing, that's why we're talking about this in our first CBB of the year, the first thing we have to do is break down these partitions between the sacred and secular. So I want to give you 3 action points, and then I'm going to turn this over to Bill, and he's going to walk us through some fun interaction today. Number 1, write this down. You are called. You are called. Did you know the word vocation that we use to talk about what do you do for a living? What's your vocation? That the root of that word is actually the Latin word vocare. You know what vocare means? It means calling. Vocare, calling. So I don't want you to feel less than. Write this down. You are not God's B team leftovers. God did not run out of callings and you didn't get one. My son's in the room today, so this illustration is a little bit awkward, but I want to put a picture up of my son in the 5th grade. So Austin, all of a sudden in the 5th grade, comes to us and he says, I want to play basketball. And he had never played basketball before. He'd really never even been interested in sports before, but he wanted to play basketball. So he went and he tried out. And when they put out the results, right, we see the A team. His name's not on the A team. That didn't surprise us. He hadn't played really any organized sports before. So we looked at the B team, and his name's not on the B team either. Well, nice try, son. We'll work on it. We'll try out again. Oh, the school added a C team this year. And there he was, right? They didn't want to cut any of the boys, so they started a C team, and Austin was on the C team. And you'll notice the C team kids, they got all the leftover uniforms that didn't fit right? I mean, he was like tripping on this, or he looked like the Fab Five, the Michigan Fab Five from the early 90s or something, right? It was that kind of vibe. So this, though, I believe is how a lot of us feel about our everyday work, that we're just the leftovers, right? And just as an aside, and I'm going to really embarrass him now, I promised him anytime I embarrass him, I'll brag on him too. So I do want you to see, like, he did play college football and all of that, right? But, well, awesome. I won't make... Okay. We'll stop embarrassing my son now since he's in the room. And honestly, that had nothing to do with anything I had to share with you this morning. I just have a deal with him. If I embarrass him, I have to brag on him too, okay? All right? Sorry, buddy. I love you, man. But see, a lot of us feel like the Kingdom B team, don't we? And you aren't less than because you have a job in the marketplace. But also, listen, you aren't off the hook. Write this down. You have a role and responsibility in God's kingdom from your assignment in the marketplace. We all own the missio Dei of God as followers of Jesus, to love God, love our neighbors, and make disciples of all nations. We all have assignments within this common calling that all of us have, all right? So all of us are called. We must embrace our missional kingdom calling as God's image bearers in the world from whatever assignment we find ourselves in. Pastors in the church, yes. Missionaries on the mission field, yes. And every marketplace believer working in every sphere of this life. You do not just work in the marketplace. Write this down. We all own the mission of God as followers of Jesus. All right, I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here, all right? Number 2, write this down. The gospel isn't just good news for your spiritual life. It's good news for all of your life. All of your life was meant to glorify God. I mentioned Gnosticism earlier, right? The Gnostics, they believe spirit is good, but matter is evil. And this heresy has been plaguing the church really in various forms and fashions since the first century. Really, Gnosticism laid the foundation for the sacred secular divide, or this Christian dualism that has brought purposelessness to so many marketplace believers. Gnosticism is the lunch tray, okay? It's the lunch tray. So spiritual activities like prayer and worship and ministry, those are sacred, while activities like business, labor, and other aspects of our everyday life, those are secular, right? And over time, this false dichotomy is just soaked in to who we are. So we assume that pastors and missionaries, maybe some nonprofits, right? They do God's work, but the rest of us are just doing the worldly necessities, and that is not true. That's why I love this quote from the great Oswald Chambers, my utmost for his highest. He said, "The spiritual, it manifests in a life which knows no division into sacred and secular." And you can write that down as well, all right? Work just isn't just another place for you to witness to people, although it is that, all right? And we're going to talk about how you use the marketplace as a platform to glorify Jesus. But write this down. In Christ, your actual work becomes a sacred endeavor as well. And we're going to unpack that much more at our next CBB in June, all right? And finally, write this down. This is our last takeaway. The gospel redeems the work of our hands. I love this. Colossians 1:19 and 20. You can write this down as well. For God in all his fullness was pleased to live in Christ, and through him God reconciled what? What? You can talk this morning. Everything to himself. He made peace with everything in heaven and on earth by means of Christ's blood on the cross. Write this down. The gospel redeems all things, including the work of your hands. And so whatever you do across this room today, if you're a restaurant owner, if you're the pastor of a church, if you're a financial planner, if you're a farmer, it's Indiana after all, right? If you work in corporate sales, if you work in city or state government, if you're a missionary to an unreached people group, if you own and manage real estate, if you sweep floors, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are full-time ministry, if you are full-time marketplace, reconciled to Christ, that work is sacred work. It is sacred work. Write this down. Your work can be a resurrected, reimagined, and embraced as part of God's kingdom mission in the world. Because the gospel redeems it all, resurrects it all. Jesus owns it all. Your business, if you own a business in here today, that's a sacred kingdom asset. And the work you do each day is a sacred kingdom calling. So, just in closing, this is what I want to leave you with today. You may remember, I'm aging myself, so some of the younger folks here won't remember this, but in the 80s, you remember when the Berlin Wall fell? And Ronald Reagan stood there in Germany and he said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." And it was one of those like great American moments, right? U.S. history for the globe, really. Well, that's what I'm saying to you today, right? You as a marketplace believer, it's time for you to tear down this wall, the way you see your everyday work. If you want to recover deep meaning, purpose, and calling in your everyday work, if you want to live fully integrated, fully human Christian lives, if you want to live missionally in the marketplace, then you have to tear down this pagan wall that we have all built between the sacred and secular, right? So the great separation, this is the first thing we want to work through with you as part of these CBBs. So thanks for giving us some time this morning.